How's it going, everyone? This is Marshmallow HD here, back at you with another video. This will be my guide for beginner junglers that don't know the role fully. This video will be in full depth information on how the role works and the advantages of the role. The jungler is a fairly popular role on the Rift due to the ability to make plays around the map and help your team succeed throughout the entire game. The most basic definition of a jungler is a champion who levels up through neutral camps in between the lanes, generally referred to as the jungle, hence the term jungler, such as a blue buff, a red buff, wraiths, gromp, and wolves, etc. The pros and cons of jungling. Pros can make a big influence on how well your team does pre-15 minutes with gank pressure and counter jungling. There's a lot of viable champions that can be played in the jungle as well, and also it's easy to climb the rank ladder if you are a strong jungler. Cons are, if your lanes are struggling, there's really not much you can do. You most likely will get a lot of hate and criticism for not providing enough pressure in the lanes. Most champions who are junglers don't usually scale well into the late game. Obviously there are some exceptions to a few champions, but most of them won't scale into late game. Also, the jungler role is a very diverse compared to the other roles because you are playing the map every single second, and every decision you make should mean something, so be aware of everything that's going on. So as you can see on this map of Summoner's Rift, you can also see all the actual camp names and everything that is inside the jungle. So you obviously got the Krugs, you got the red Brambleback, the Razorbacks, the Wolves, the Blue Centennials, the Gromps, the Dragon, and then it's obviously it's mirrored diagonally. So you do have a certain sort of style of how you can go about doing the jungle. Now I'll go over that in just a second. But as you can see, it's mirrored diagonally as well. So you got 2 red buffs, you got 2 blue buffs, you got 2 wolves, 2 razorbacks, 2 of everything inside the jungle.
Now, there's 2 ways of actually finding out where the jungler is and how you can actually path where it's going. Now, what you can do is obviously have AD carry or support, not matter who, place a ward and find out where their jungler is. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is let's say if your ADC and support can't get a ward down due to their mid laner waiting in a bush right here or something like that, and actually, watching the bush, you can actually have your jungler look out for the support and AD carry coming late to lane, or their top lane coming late. So let's say if the top lane's already up here and he's waiting for the top lane to come in lane and have a nice laning. What you guys can do, this guy's going to actually come out from here most likely, and come in from lane after it's already started. This top lane should say, okay, the top lane came late to lane, so that means most likely he's either FK or obviously the jungler needed Alicia blue buff. So if the jungler most likely needed Alicia blue buff, this jungler is going to say, okay, I know where this jungler is, and the top lane communicated with the jungler that the jungler on the enemy team is starting the blue buff. So there's another way of also doing this as well from the opposite team. If you're this jungler and you just got a leash, you're most likely going to go to your wolves, or you're going to go to Gromp, and you're going to go here. Now you can do that. Once you do that, this jungler, once he's done with his camp, the support and the ADC is going to go to bot lane. So this jungler should either see that and say, okay, ADC and support came to bot lane late, or the ADC and support bot lane on your team should communicate to you and say, okay, their ADC and support came late to lane, so that means their jungler started blue buff. So that means he's going to go Gromp, he's going to go Wolves, he's going to go here. There's multiple ways you can do that, or he's just going to clear all the stuff and then go to this one here, and then you're going to do this, and he's going to go all the way through his camps and his. And then you can do that way or do that, does not matter how. Now, if you have vision of the jungler, know where he's going to path, you can actually figure out what he's going to do. Now, if you have a jungler that is more aggressive and can invade you, what might happen is if you're going through your camps and you have good jungle clear, but he is going to beat you to your jungle because you're going to go through here and you're not even going to notice that he's invading you because you don't have wards up. Now, the ADC and support should ward for you just to be careful, and they can actually get wards. They do have a ward here, let's say, at your red buff anywhere here, and have vision of your jungler. Now, what you should do is you should communicate and say, okay, sorry. What you guys can do is you guys can actually have mid laner collapse, support collapse, ADC collapse, jungler, well, fun. You got 4v1 right here. The ADC and support won't be able to react fast to actually get to the jungler, but the mid will, and that can turn into a 4v2. Guess what? You guys should most likely trade, and you guys can get the jungler behind and get the mid laner behind it. You guys can do that. Now, the ADC and support will come too late if they do notice that the laners, their lane opponents even have. So it may turn into a 4v4, but it'll turn into a 4v4 later. These champions, these will arrive, or the ADC and support on the blue side, the blue team will arrive first, because they'll have vision, and they should have the map awareness to see the jungler. Oh, the jungler is taking the red buff. So we're going to have the jungler come in, we're going to have the mid collapse, the ADC collapse, the support collapse. They're all going to come in, and they're all going to actually be able to execute the jungler and kill the jungler off, and then the mid lane to either most likely will stay and farm up and get ahead of the man. But if you get first blood on the jungler, this jungler is going to be set behind and put back in the base. This jungler is going to either have red buff, or one of your actual teammates is going to have red buff, and you guys will actually be ahead in the lane. So he's going to have to run to his red buff and try to take it, so he can try to stay ahead or stay even with the opposing jungler. So that's one way of doing it. Now there's so many different, obviously, ways you can actually go about doing this stuff. If you have vision of the jungler, always think of what he can do next. Okay, so let's say if we're at a map that looks like this, you got a jungler that's doing his red, and let's say if this jungler here has vision of this red because he warded or something like that, or their top lane warded, or he somehow just knows that their jungler is doing red, he can do three things. Sorry. He can actually do his crops, just do his basic camps, stuff like that, and then do scuttle, and then gain top lane, gain mid lane. There's 3 ways of doing it. Just keep farming his lane and do that. Now, if you have vision of him and your mid laner, let's say if your mid laner has a ward down here, and the mid laner sees this jungler walking through here, oh, I have vision of the jungler. He is in the river on top side near Baron. So there's 2 things that is probably going to happen. Let's say if you didn't take your gromp because you were trying to get to the red buff to clear it, to actually counter and invade the actual opposing jungler. This jungler may start invading your jungle and go for a gank top lane. Now you can do that. The top lane should obviously have vision down here, so he'll have a ward here, most likely, unless if it's timed out or something like that. If the top lane has a ward down, that's also possible. So if the top lane should have a ward, once the top lane spots out the jungler, hey, jungler is on my side, he's trying to gank me. Okay, so this jungler should have a brain and actually gank bot lane or gank mid lane, because there's if the top laner has vision and is backing away, guess what? This jungler is going to be behind because he just went up to top lane for no reason and didn't get anything out of it. So he's going to go back in his jungle, or he's going to back to base or something like that and start taking more of his. Now, once he actually succeeds in not, let's say if he succeeds a gank, what you should end up doing is this jungler. Let's say if the top lane of the jungler killed him. So top lane's gone. He's going to go back to base. This jungler can either gank mid, get a kill here, and counteract that, or what you can do is start invading his jungle and then get a gank bot or getting gank mid. There's always something you should be doing as a jungler, and always being proactive in what you're doing. Always be aware of what the enemy jungler is doing. Oh, the enemy jungler is ganking top lane? Okay, I'm going to go his jungle, clear his jungle, and then I'm going to go bot. And I'm going to go actually try to see if I can have a 3 bot and try to blow some of their summoners, anything like that. You can blow any sort of summoners for the support or ADC or mid or jungle or anything. If you can blow anything, that's worth sort of circumstance. So anything you guys can do to give your lane opponents tactical advantage, that's always important. So always just be aware of that situation. So jungler ganks top lane, you should be either invading his jungler in jungle and getting him behind in terms of farm, or you can gank lanes and do your jungle, and always just be proactive with much. So this is basically what I was just talking about. Now, this is kind of long, so I'm very sorry about that. But this is such a good actual tool to use for this. So you can actually find out jungle pathing. You can actually look at the map at a bigger scale, see what the jungler can be thinking at all times. Now, like I said, there's just so much you can be doing as a jungler, and this is why such a viable role, such a role that is so strong, because you can help your team throughout the game by either getting ganks and getting your team ahead, or getting dragons and barons and stuff like that. Just always being proactive about this actual sector.
So as a jungler, you're going to want to how to balance your farming and ganking at the same time. I said earlier that you always want to be active around the map, meaning that you should always be farming in between ganks and moving throughout your jungle. Just always be aware of your surroundings. So once you get a gank off, if you don't die or you're not too low, go back to farming your jungle so you can stay relevant inside the game. If you're just ganking and not getting gold for yourself, you will be behind more times than you can imagine. The general rule of thumb for positions is farming is the safest way to gold and is the most guaranteed to have a gold advantage or stay even with your jungle opponent. Going for kills and assists is very unreliable, and it's never a guarantee that you will get the kills or the assists. Just always be farming in between ganks and never forget the scuttle crab in the river, as it gives you 100 gold. So this last and final part is controlling invades and invading. If the enemy invades your camps early, most junglers panic and try to fight. If you have the advantage in terms of numbers, feel free to counteract that invade and try to get first blood out of it. Now, some junglers may disagree, but if you have an advantage and can push them out of the jungle, you can get something out of it. And I personally think it would be better instead of recalling and changing your jungling path. There's an alternate way. If you'd like to stay safe if they invade your jungle, ask for a proper leash on one of their camps and try to counter invade to make things even. So like I said in this clip, as you can see, the Yi's coming down and trying to invade onto my jungle. I don't panic, I just stay patient. He has red buff, so he went red buff to my blue buff. I warded it just to have vision on it and keep him in my vision so I know. Urgot comes to help me out, and then also the Teemo that was in the top lane comes to help me out, and it makes it a 3v2 because their Aatrox also comes down. We jump onto the Yi, and I patiently wait for the Yi to actually try to Q onto me, and then we get the kill onto the E because I was patient enough, waited for my teammates to actually help me out and finish off the kill. Now, if you're planning on an invade, the first thing you should take into consideration is your team composition versus theirs. If your team comp is better in the late game, invading is probably not the best decision for your team. The next thing to take into account is the level 1 abilities of each champion on your team and on the enemy team. If their level 1 moves keep you or your teammates pinned or poked down, an invade might not be the best choice. If their team is more suited for late game, definitely invade. Keep them behind as much as possible so you may thrive through your early and mid game for an easy victory. Lastly, teamfights. Now in teamfights, you gotta know your role, whether it's doing tons of damage or soaking up tons of damage. Champions like Zac, Malphite, Amumu use their ultimates to swing teamfights and soak up tons of damage due to them being so tanky. Your main objective is to go for the squishies of the ADC and mid laner to take them out of the fight. If you are a damage dealer, then you must stay back and do the damage you're supposed to do. But most of the time, you should just pick a tank or a bruiser that does both damage and tank. So that will be it for me, you guys. This will be my jungler guide for Season 7. If you took anything away from this video, please feel free to drop a like. If you have any sort of comments and any other tips for me or this guide, please feel free to put a comment in the section below and I will respond. If you did like this guide, please subscribe to my channel for more videos. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is Marshmallow HD, signing out.